You get into bed. The room goes dark. Your body is exhausted. And then your brain decides it's the perfect time to replay every embarrassing thing you've ever said at a party. It goes through the argument you had 3 years ago. It drafts emails you'll never send. It invents conversations with people who aren't there. You lie still, completely motionless, while something inside your skull refuses to stop moving. Why does this happen? And why does it feel so completely out of your control? The answer takes you back further than you might expect. Further than psychology, further than medicine, all the way back to the conditions your brain was actually built for. Your brain did not evolve for a world with mattresses and blackout curtains and nothing left to do. It evolved for a world where the moment you stopped moving was exactly when things could go wrong. Danger didn't announce itself. Predators moved at night. Rivals approached while you slept. Your brain learned, over millions of years, that stillness and silence were not signals to rest. They were signals to scan. Researchers call this hypervigilance, and it was not a flaw. It was the feature that kept your ancestors alive. Think about what nighttime actually meant for most of human history. You couldn't see more than a few feet in any direction. Every sound was unidentified. Every rustle in the dark was a question mark. The brain that survived was the one that stayed partially alert. The one that kept processing. The one that never fully let go. Matthew Walker, a neuroscientist at the University of California, Berkeley, and the author of research on sleep architecture, has shown that the brain during the transition into sleep enters a state of heightened emotional processing. It is not winding down. It is sorting. It is reviewing. It is preparing for whatever comes next. That sorting is not random. Your brain is specifically looking for unresolved things, problems without solutions, conversations without endings, decisions you haven't made yet. This is not your brain torturing you. This is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is running a threat assessment. It is asking, before it lets you go unconscious, whether anything has been left vulnerable. In the ancient world, that process had answers. You knew where the fire was. You knew who was standing watch. You knew the terrain around the camp. The brain could complete its checklist and settle. But in your world, the checklist has no end. You lie there and your brain asks, did you handle that email? Your brain asks, what did they mean by that comment? Your brain asks, what happens if the thing you're afraid of actually happens? And none of those questions have clean answers. So the brain keeps asking. It loops, it spirals, it builds. Not because it is broken, but because it is loyal to a mission that no longer has a clean conclusion. This is what psychologists call the Zygarnik effect. Bluma Zygarnik was a Soviet psychologist working in the 1920s who noticed something strange about waiters in a Vienna cafe. They could hold enormous amounts of uncompleted orders in their minds with perfect accuracy. But the moment an order was finished, it disappeared from memory almost immediately. The brain, she discovered, holds on to unfinished things. It keeps them active. It keeps them circling in working memory until they reach resolution. At night, when there is nothing else competing for your attention, every unfinished loop your brain has been quietly holding throughout the day rises to the surface all at once. The unresolved argument. The decision you keep postponing. The goal you want but haven't started. They don't feel important during the day because there are 1,000 other inputs drowning them out. But in the dark, in the quiet, they speak at full volume. And there is another layer beneath that. When your body lies down and your muscles release tension, your nervous system interprets the stillness differently than you do. You interpret it as rest. Your nervous system interprets it as exposure. You are horizontal. You are unmoving. You cannot see your surroundings. From a survival standpoint, this is a vulnerable position. And so while your conscious mind is trying to sleep, a much older part of your brain is responding to that vulnerability by increasing its vigilance. This is why the thoughts that arrive at night feel different from daytime thoughts. They feel more urgent, more catastrophic, more real. The emotional intensity is turned up because the part of your brain processing those thoughts, the amygdala, is running hot. Research by Els van der Helm and Matthew Walker at UC Berkeley has shown that sleep deprivation and pre-sleep emotional arousal create a feedback loop. The more your brain fails to downregulate emotion at night, the more fragmented your sleep becomes. And the more fragmented your sleep becomes, the worse your brain gets at regulating emotion the next day. The spiral feeds itself. But here is the part that almost no one talks about. The thoughts you cannot stop at night are almost never random. They follow a pattern. They cluster around the things that matter most to you. Your relationships, your work, your sense of who you are, and whether you are doing enough. Your brain does not waste its nighttime processing cycles on things you don't care about. The fact that your mind won't let something go is, in a very literal sense, a measure of how much it means to you. Your anxiety at 2 a.m. is not a signal that something is wrong with you. It is a signal that something matters. That does not make it comfortable, but it changes what it means. The ancient Stoics understood something about this. Marcus Aurelius, writing in the 2nd century, described the habit of lying awake rehearsing problems as a natural function of a mind that takes its duties seriously. His prescription was not to silence the mind, but to direct it. To give the scanning brain a concrete object, something it could grip and hold and examine, rather than letting it spin in open air. Modern sleep researchers have arrived at almost exactly the same place through a completely different route. Sleep scientist Alison Harvey at UC Berkeley has extensively studied what she calls the cognitive model of insomnia. Her research shows that the most effective intervention for racing thoughts at night is not relaxation, it is specificity. When you convert a vague, looping worry into a concrete written question, the brain registers it as partially resolved, not solved, but contained. The Zeigarnik loop closes slightly. The threat assessment can pause. This is why writing things down before bed works. Not journaling in a therapeutic sense, just a list. What is unresolved? What needs attention tomorrow? The brain, when it can see that information has been externalized, begins to release it. It does not need to hold everything in working memory if it has reason to believe the information is stored somewhere it can return to. But there is a deeper practice beneath even that. And it comes from understanding what the nighttime mind is really looking for. It is not looking for solutions. It is looking for safety. It is asking, at the most fundamental level, whether you are okay, whether the people you love are okay, whether tomorrow will have something stable to stand on. And most of the time, the answer to those questions is yes. But the brain does not feel that yes. It thinks it. There is a difference. The practices that actually work at night, the ones that genuinely slow the loop, are the ones that produce the felt sense of safety. Slow exhale breathing, which activates the parasympathetic nervous system and signals the amygdala to reduce its threat response. Physical relaxation of the jaw and shoulders, which your nervous system reads as a release of vigilance. The deliberate direction of attention towards something specific and benign. These are not tricks. They are direct communications to a part of your brain that does not speak in language. It speaks in sensation, in signal, in the physical evidence of whether the world is safe or threatening. When you breathe slowly, your nervous system hears. We are not being chased. When you unclench your jaw, it hears. There is no immediate threat. When you hold a single simple object in your mind, it hears. The scan is complete. Your ancestors, in the dark, around a fire, with the people they trusted nearby, felt that same signal. The warmth, the presence, the specific sounds of a world that was, for this moment, safe. Their brains quieted because the evidence of safety was physical and real, not abstract, not an argument they made with themselves. A feeling. You can produce versions of that feeling. It takes practice. It takes learning to speak to the oldest part of your brain in the only language it has ever understood. And here is the thing worth sitting with. Every night before you fall asleep, your brain is doing something remarkable. It is going through everything it holds that is unfinished, everything it values, everything it is afraid of losing. It is, in its ancient and exhausting way,